The Thursday edition of SEC Sidelines Sports Network and SECU. Rob Brown, Brendan Martin here with you. Got a big one today, a lot on store. Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports National College sports writer, one of the best out there. True grit journalism on display. Bo Carter from out in the Metroplex, Dallas-Fort Worth, will check in with his thoughts. National Football Foundation, Baseball Writers of America. Coach Matt Dean shortly after that, and maybe a surprise later in the show.
Maybe.
But do us a favor. Smash that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. Hit that thing. When you do, you'll get automatic notifications of our shows. Hit allow notifications on your Android or iPhone device. Tell friends, families, and neighbors, and get pen and paper handy. Sidelines, college football talk is coming your way in about 43 seconds.
40.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown here with you. And I see Bo Carter and Dennis jump. Man, Dennis has got the footballs in the background.
I do.
Hey, got Bo Carter on here with you, Dennis. He talked about y'all wrote a little book together. But first off, well, I'm thinking college football when I get you on here. Really appreciate you taking time to join us. And we're going to be talking a lot about whatever is on your mind and Bo's mind. I like to engage the guests and let y'all run. You've probably already been up running because I know at media days you got up every morning and worked out there at the at that Grand Hyatt. But we're going to Dallas this year. So what's happening in college football that's got you the most excited right now that the rest of the country probably doesn't know about?
Well, first of all, pleasant surprise with Bo Carter, a part of my soul from the past. But I'm glad to be with you guys. But gosh, it's everything. It's almost everything but football.
Yeah.
It's format and structure of the playoff. It's the lawsuits, which nobody wants to hear about, but probably is the biggest impediment towards a new, day in college athletics. I think a year from now. I used to say 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I think a year from now, we're going to see compensation, formal compensation in some form of athletes. We've got the Super League hanging around. Just a couple days ago, I found out Derek Dooley's trying to pitch a group of 5 playoff. We got the draft today through Saturday. So there's all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah, just pretty quiet time of the year. I always like to try to say there's a preseason, competitive season, postseason, and off season. The off season just means you're going maybe 100 miles an hour. So nothing too big. Bo Carter, jump in here. I love it when people that have worked together over the years, y'all are why we follow college sports is because of the writers. All the time and effort that you put in. And Dennis, I said this the other day, you know, you think about the press boxes. They're moving them over in the corner now. Those are, as Buddy Martin says, Brendan's dad, those are cathedrals. And I know some of the ass chewings I got from David Housel one time when I was in college for cheering in the press box. Man, I didn't do that again. It's a working press box, and you respect the press and the writers that are there. But putting a endowed professorship or an endowed lifetime scholarship for someone like a Jack Hairston or Buddy Martin, we ought to start doing that around the country because, you know, the reason everybody wants to go to the Sistine Chapel is because of what Michelangelo did. And the writers tell these stories. And Bo, you're one of the best. Jump in here. And I like what Dennis just said.
Well, yeah, thanks. It's great to be with Dennis and Brendan this morning. Dennis, great to see you. Cardinals, got to get the Cardinals a new manager pretty soon, Dennis.
Don't get
We're
me started.
fellow giant
Don't
Cardinal
get me
fans for 50 plus years, but no. And plus, Rob, we've got the NIL transfer portal. The transfer portal. portal.
Yeah.
What is it, the 30th, Dennis? So we got mass defections going on now again. So I don't see how people are publishing programs either, Dennis. Or the website changes every day with the roster on every team. So man, to complicate things even further. So I think Caitlin Clark just signed another $1 million NIL deal yesterday.
Wow.
So she's going to be the richest woman in America in about 2 or 3 years, I guess.
Yeah, let me break in here really quick. I forgot the portal window, which ends, let's see, Tuesday, I think.
I think
Yeah.
so.
It hasn't been that bad. Am I
No.
wrong? I mean, it hasn't been entire offensive lines leaving. There's been stories like, what's Dion going to do to fill out his roster?
Yeah.
But I think most of the guys we knew were going to be in there are in there. Caden Proctor, obviously, a guy like him. But it hasn't, and I give some credit to the coaches that maybe they've started to figure it out. That you do have to re-recruit your roster. As unpleasant as that is, they've planned ahead. They know which holes they're going to have to fill.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been that mad rush to the door, and maybe it's coming. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's still 2 weekends left. 1 weekend in the portal, but 2 weekends of spring football left, games. So maybe we'll have something. I don't know.
Well, last year your school, your alma mater, Missouri, pops up and goes 11-2, beats Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl 14. It was a dominant performance, and they've got an NIL rule in the state of Missouri that you know a lot about. That I think when you're a senior in high school, if you're an in-state kid, you can start getting paid before you get on campus. Is that factual or urban myth?
No, that's a state law. It's
Okay.
It was the first state law of its kind. Virginia just passed a similar law. Mississippi is in the process or has passed a similar law. There are going to be others imitating them until everybody gets their arms around it, until we get formal compensation. But yeah, I'm digging down deep on the Missouri thing because I talked to Eli Drinkowitz last week. He passed through town here in Kansas City on Missouri's caravan came through town. He said, yes, we do have players who are earning NIL compensation who are still in high school. And so one of those is the best recruit, at least on paper, that they've ever had. His name is Williams Nwarney, and he's from Lee Summit North, edge rusher, 5-star, turned down Alabama, Georgia, what have you, to stay in state. And look, to what extent NIL money had to do with that, I would like to find out. He is earning money right now as a senior in high school. And yes, the law is once you sign the letter of intent, you can get NIL benefits. And uniquely at Missouri, they do not have a collective per se. They have a marketing agent called Every True Tiger, which basically lines up deals. I don't know how that's different from a collective, but they line up deals. And they've got them. I know Luther Burden, the receiver, Brady Cook, the quarterback, appeared together on ads and in billboards around the state. So I don't know how much exactly they're getting, but they're getting it. And I think that's the next iteration. You'll see a lot of these states join in.
Well, Dennis, yesterday during the show, Bo and Brendan, I know y'all have seen it, the story about Reggie Bush getting his Heisman back. And what are your thoughts about that? I want yours, Dennis, and then Bo, your thoughts on that.
I covered Reggie, went through this entire thing with him, talked to him at length in December in Las Vegas at the National Football Foundation, where, by the way, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame prior to this. And it really, gosh, this could take the rest of the show. But look, it's fair. I think the Heisman Trust yesterday was altruistic. I don't think there were any motives in what they said. They just said it was time. The changing college landscape. Wasn't that the description? And I think they're right. They're talking about, the NIL. They're talking about compensation. They're talking about, look, at the end of the day, what are we really talking about? It was an institutional penalty. Yeah. As Reggie told me and showed me in a letter from the NCAA, that he is never named in that public report. And look, the NCAA is very careful not to name individuals in case they get sued that way.
Yeah.
But let's be honest. I talked to an NCAA source last night. We were just chatting. What he did and what they did then it's against the rules today.
Yeah.
A house was procured by a marketing agent for him and his family in San Diego. That's against the rules then.
Yeah.
That's against the rules now.
Mhm.
But time had passed. They gave him, if you guys remember, a permanent disassociation. In other words, Reggie Bush could not basically set foot on campus
Yeah.
for the rest of his life. That was limited to 10 years in 2020. So it's just about time. Makes the Heisman look good. It makes Reggie, who's a good guy, look good. And it's a unique set of circumstances we'll probably never run into again.
Bo, you see why it's great to get people that actually cover these stories on. Yesterday, I asked Dudley Dawson, who covers Arkansas, Hogville.net, I said, is it true what Jerry Jones said about doubling? And he goes, no. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you. Bo, you're the professor. Come on in here.
Well, Dennis and I have talked about this. SMU is just about 40 or 50 years ahead of its time on its compensation plan.
Retroactively.
They may never get NCAA forgiveness on the death penalty, I guess, but
wow.
it's a mess. And Dennis referred to this in the stories too. I think Nick Saban again, because of all the just losing control of power. You can't get the players to run the stadium steps at 6 a.m. I got I've got a appearance at the local car dealership at 7 o'clock or whatever too. And
wow.
I know on one show, and Rob referred to this one time, I think his wife came up to him during the freshman player breakfast and said, Nick, why are we even doing this? These kids are already making tons of money. We don't have to have their, and the parents were asking Saban and his wife said, how much more do you think my son will make as he plays at Alabama? So it's the amateurism element is rapidly fading away.
Real quick on Reggie, Rob. He's having a press conference today. This is from him by his people. I want to know two things. I want to know if he's dropped his lawsuit against the NCAA for defamation. Let's not forget that. A staffer a couple of years ago said it was a play for pay scheme. Well, it certainly wasn't play for pay. She misspoke. They're suing the NCAA. We'll see if he's dropped that because of this. Also, let's not forget that every time Reggie Bush's name appears in the USC media guide, there's a little asterisk next to it. Because as part of the penalties, they had to wipe out his achievements. He is 8th in USC rushing. If you give him the yards that were vacated, he's 2nd all time in USC rushing. So he's mentioned hundreds of times. They just have to put a little reminder that the numbers from the last 2 games of 2004 and all of 2005 do not count. I am I'm trying to find out from the NCAA if they're considering, dropping those sanctions. We'll see.
Yeah, and that is, you can think of other players over the years who have been through the ringer, and it's great seeing somebody going out and actually digging on the story and asking a lot of questions, because that's the duty of the press. I mean, I can remember when I was in school at Auburn in the press conferences, sometimes Coach Dye didn't want to take all the questions, but he did. And I tell you, y'all probably know Philip Marshall. I love Philip Marshall. Fans will say a bunch of stuff, and then he'll write an article like, calm your ass down, just think about what you're saying. And it's just refreshing to hear somebody's actually out there digging into the stories, because so much of what we see now is soundbite, 8-10 seconds to hold people's attention. Bo, along that line, I mean, SMU, somebody sent me a text yesterday. Retroactively, they're going to claim 3 straight national championships. But it's
that's every day.
Every day.
So I got to ask you, Dennis, on the national picture, you're based right in the middle of America, Kansas City. You travel a lot. I don't know how old your kids are, but you're on the road a lot. You're everywhere. But that's what we need more of, is a coach going into a writer going into a coach's office like the good old days, and just listen and just take notes. And there comes a great story. I think we're going to go back to that, because I think the fans are going to get so mad at all this other stuff. It's hard to fire a coach if he's the friend of the fans. It's easy to fire him if nobody knows him. You kind of, like as a financial advisor, if you don't call your clients except to sell them something and a market goes to hell, they're going to get rid of you. They'll fire you. But they'll keep their friends. What about that possibility? Because even sometimes they may not like what you write, but by God, you're writing and you're doing the work.
Well, let's boil it down. Nothing's changed. Everything's about recruiting, and everything's about winning percentage. You can get away with a whole hell of a lot. Like, Donald Trump said, I can shoot somebody on Park Avenue and get away with it. If you've got the winning percentage.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
It came to mind about recruiting recently when Kim Mulkey lost her mind over the Washington Post story, which she said she never read, by the way, and it was not bad. It brought up issues that she had already written about in her personal life, so there's really nothing new there. Because she was worried about recruiting. You can see through these things. Now, what you're talking about, Rob, is there going to be more access? I don't know. It's a fight. It's an everyday fight to get to these guys because look, and not much has changed over the years. If it doesn't help me score points, why should I do this?
Yeah.
If it's not ESPN, if it's not Fox, if it's not the rights holder, why should I do this? So you just rely on relationships. You try, you go hard. You try to get in to see these people, and you're right. That's how you find out half the stuff you find out. You don't always have to interview somebody. You can ask about their kids, about their family life. That might loosen them up. They tell you something that's going on. And that's half the battle. People, I've been around, you ask about my kids, they're grown up, they're out of the house, and people asked me about doing the job. And I said, look, it's like Woody Allen said in Annie Hall, 85% of life is just showing up. Sometimes that's enough.
Yeah. With a positive attitude. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. Bo, you think about this. You were sports information director. I love to use the term SID. When did you start seeing the lack of access really rear its head? When did that? I'm trying to. Was it when the internet came along?
Kind of. Dennis probably remembers these days. They used to have there'd be a media guide or whatever that people were available mornings, 9:00 to 12 or whatever. If you could set up an appointment or whatever. I know Emory Ballard, the late Emory Ballard of Mississippi State was great. From 12 to 1, he'd take on student media, whoever else or whatever too. And
I love that.
Back to that point that Dennis made a minute ago too. I love in winning percentage. I love the late great Spike Dykes, one of our favorites, Dennis's too. Said what you lose 10% of your fan support every year, and when he got to his 13th year, he said, "I don't know how I'm still around."
Right.
So great line, but no, you're right. The internet created a lot of it, and then Dennis has seen this. The coaches have gotten so suspicious. Somebody bring an iPhone into practice or whatever, and maybe get a coach screaming at some or this now. They've all been banned or any electronic devices or whatever too, because somebody breaks a leg or whatever. Well, we're that's off the record. Everything turn off the iPhone or wipe that off your memory or whatever too. So no, the access has just gotten tougher and tougher. It's gotten more. Dennis knows too. It's gotten more corporate. You've got to get an appointment to see the CEO, so to speak.
There used to be an event here in Kansas City that somebody just reminded me of. It was called the College Football Forum. And every February, the NCAA would fly in, 5 coaches for a couple of days. And all we do, and anybody who wanted to come could come. And they'd get a room up at Crown Center where the draft was held last year, nice hotel. And you could ask these guys whatever you wanted to ask them. Sometimes we'd go out to dinner. And Joe Paterno, I think Spike Dykes was there one year. But it was
That's
just,
awesome.
guys that had come off good seasons, guys that were coming, young coaches on the come. Can you imagine that now? If, pick a coach and his handlers say, well, why do you need to go there? ESPN's doing a documentary on your daughter. You're going to get plenty of exposure.
Yeah.
Why do you need to expose yourself to that? That's just going to be hot takes on the internet. But we literally got to ask them anything we wanted. And that to the NCAA's everlasting credit, I will give them that. That was a great event.
Keith Donovan is the ESPN college football historian. He talked in that documentary, the 150th year of college football, about the television aristocracy in the 70s. 5 times in a 2-year period was the max you could be on. It's still every game is on TV now. My dad is 95. He said back in the 50s, when they put games on TV, a lot of people thought people wouldn't go to the games. And then in 1984, Chuck Ninus, the CFA, Georgia and Oklahoma, well, people won't go to the games. And if I'm guessing, I'm giving a swag, scientific wild ass guess. Every stadium in America out of 133 D1 schools has probably expanded at least 2 or 3 times since then. Now it's about more luxury seating, but also the tailgating, Dennis. I mean, I call it the Grove effect. Ole Miss there used to be 60,000 in that stadium. There'd be 40,000 out in the Grove during a lot of those games and 20,000 inside. Now it's 60 inside and 40 outside. That's we've taken the man cave to the tailgate now, hadn't we?
Yeah, studio football is what it is.
Yeah.
But it hasn't diminished. I've written about this extensively, how, it's easier in your Barca lounge, or you don't have to pay for parking, beers, a kitchen away. But let's update those numbers. When we were told that but for years, actually, by the NCAA and court filings, that some of this stuff would destroy the game. Like you mentioned, people wouldn't watch, ratings would decline. The earth would be swallowed up into a black hole.
Yeah.
Well, I'd run the numbers every year for the second time, for only the second time since I think 2007, or first time since 2007, we have back-to-back increases in overall attendance. I don't have to tell you, and that's 3 years after an 8-year decline in attendance, and that's through COVID and everything else. Now it's shooting up. It's shooting up rapidly. I'd have to tell you about the TV ratings last year. A lot of it was the Deion effect, but good for Deion, good for Colorado, good for college football. I think 10 of the top 25 games involved games that were either in the Pac-12 or with Colorado, in a league that was dying. Had 40% of the top 25 games, and that's a shame in itself. But don't believe everything you see here or read, especially from the NCAA and these court filings. They've been proven completely wrong. The game has never been stronger, I think, at this point.
Dennis, I love what you just said. And Bo, we talk about it all the time. Only positive attitudes allowed on SEC sidelines, Sports Network, and SECU. But just talking to sports writers, we had Ken Capps on a few weeks ago doing a podcast on Texas, and both of y'all on here. I'm with you. I think what happened, people thought people would stay home in their man cave and watch the games. But when we had these lockdowns during the virus, I think people realized, man, I can work remote and walk around in my boxers and T-shirt all day, but I'm not as productive as I am when I'm out among. We love being around people. And Bo, what he just said, look what's happening in Dallas with SMU. Hey, they're in a big boy conference, and they raised $150 million in 10 days. They passed the bucket around. But I don't like seeing the Pac-12 going away, because we all grew up. You didn't miss a lot of games like Southern Cal, UCLA, Stanford, and Cal. I don't wish other people bad things to happen to their programs. That's where I'm coming from.
No, I totally agree. And Dennis had some good points there. I think one thing too, Robin, you hit on it too, the social aspect of the deal. Schools are hiring more people in fan experience. They want to have the T-shirt giveaways. They're really making a lot more emphasis on student, involvement or whatever. There for a while, and Dennis, you'll probably agree with this, they got away from sort of, they were going after the big money people and saying, we don't really need Nebraska's sold out every game. We don't have to worry about the 20 and 30-year-olds. Now they're really making concerted effort to involve everybody. And it's,
they just open the doors. They just open the doors.
We went to a Mississippi State homecoming game. I hadn't been back to Starkville in about 25 years. There used to be about 10 campers right now. The whole campus is enveloped in $50,000 tents with generators. The whole thing that you can stay in the tents and watch 15 games while the other games going on. So they
have wisely made it more experiential. Bo, you're right. They used to just open the doors, come on in. Hey, it's football.
Yeah.
I like to give these examples. places like Kansas, which is spending $400 million on what they call the Gateway Project, which will include hotel locker rooms, rebuilding the stadium from the studs. I think you saw what Northwestern is doing. They're spending, I think, $800 million to redo Ryan Field and playing in a 3,000 seat practice field for some of their home games this year. There are others. There are great examples, but what I have long said that is a love letter to major college football. In other words, when the next tsunami hits, when realignment hits, we want to be taken along. And I think that's very valid. There's no assurance that teams like Kansas, schools like Kansas and Northwestern are going to be taken along, because I think what we saw in that Super League presentation, if you want to get into that, is first we had realignment, and now they go to these divisions. We're going to be cutting from the bottom. What Alabama's going to wake up one day and go, why is Vanderbilt making the same money we are? And that as crass as that sounds, I think we're at that point. When you see the SEC and Big Ten basically already separating, people say, oh, well, what if they leave? They've left, folks. They're playing football against those other teams, but there's no comparison as to what those teams can provide and resource, next to those two conferences.
Matt Dean, jump in this conversation. This is Dennis Dodd here. And Matt, we're talking about the national college picture, and you got a son on the staff at Oregon. You're seeing the excitement out there. They're going to the Big Ten. That's hard to believe. Dennis, you're right.
Good morning, guys. As someone that grew up in the Midwest, followed Big Ten football my whole life, moved to the South, Dennis, I was just amazed. I've been to a couple Big Ten tailgates when I was probably in my college years. And then I came to the South and went to a couple places, and just the enormity of football in the South. And then with my son working for 4 years at Texas A&M and then jumping with Dan Lanning to Oregon, never would have imagined when he went to Oregon 2 years ago that he would be back in the Big Ten. It's hard to fathom.
Nobody.
No one did. And I think Chip Kelly actually said it best last year, guys. We talked about this. It makes no sense for some of their sports to be playing a volleyball match maybe with Rutgers somehow. It just doesn't make any sense in a conference situation. But football made sense. And I think eventually I came in at the tail end of this conversation, but there's going to be some discussions about the superpowers and how they align. And right now the SEC and Big Ten the Big Ten is kind of coming to the party after the SEC, but they've caught up a little bit with some of their recent additions. And the way Michigan played last year in the Final Four was amazing. I don't know this year, how it's going to play out, but the expanded football playoffs is just going to have so much interest and so much TV revenue that we're going to continue to go from 12 to 14 or 16 or whatever, I think.
Yeah. Dennis, because we made $450 million, so we're told, trust but verify, with a 4-team playoff, does that automatically mean we're 12, we're going to do $1.35 billion? Is it going to be more, the same? What do you think?
Well, the contract is worth $1.3 billion annually. That's what ESPN is paying. They still haven't. They frankly haven't decided on if it's going to be 12 or 14. Are there going to be automatic qualifiers? None of that's been decided starting in 26. And market-wise, it was kind of a flat number. I think the CFP wanted a lot more. There are factors that why they didn't. Because I remember writing when this became a possibility. What, $2 billion a year? Why not? Number one, I think the networks are saving their money for properties that are going to be out there. NASCAR, NBA. I think the PGA contract is coming up too. So they saved a little money that way. Yeah. And the other thing, which they still haven't resolved, and this will be interesting to find out, I don't think ESPN wants to pay for those early round games on campus because of one thing. Well, several things, but the biggest is they don't want to pay all this money to televise Liberty, Georgia. And that's an example. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And it's going to be one of those, at least one of those every year. From the beginning, those early round games just weren't as much. When I was talking to industry insiders, they're saying, look, you expand this thing, the early round games are just not as valuable as the later games. Same thing with the Final Four. You pay more for that than you do those upsets are nice, and there will be upsets, but they're fleeting, and they're not brand names. And that's why the SEC and Big Ten have, kind of gotten together to get the 34 best brands at the top.
Yeah.
But the 1.3 is maybe a little below market. But I think the bigger story in all that is the Big Ten and SEC are combining to get 58% of the payout every year. Think about this. The Big Ten, I think their media rights alone, when this matures, because it's incremental every year, it goes up. $75 million per school. That's not counting $23 million per school from the CFP. So they'll be at $100 million.
Wow.
The SEC is a little behind. They're at 60 per school. So you see what Florida State and Clemson are talking about. They're starting today or whenever, 40 million behind. So they went into one of those two conferences to make up for that money, even if it's a half share, because they know in 10 years they'll get a full share and they'll be set for life. But that's where that is.
Dennis, one more thing. I know you've got to go. You've got a busy day. Appreciate you so much taking time to join us. We got to do this more often. I remember when you first came on with Pete Cordelli and me back during, I guess it was March or April during the virus. Man, that was a scary time. I mean, I think a lot of people gained weight just for all the cortisol going through their body going, what are we going to do? But man, you give people, this is really just an awesome conversation because we got media days coming up. We know there's going to be a big billboard in Dallas on I-20 in orange and white with a hook 'em horn, giant 40 by 40 billboard. In the bottom right-hand corner, it's going to say, welcome to the SEC. So you'll be out there at media. You go to all the media days. Tell people.
Physically can't go to all of them.
But you go to a lot of them. But let people know how they can follow you, keep up with all your great work with CBS. And every time you get a great sports writer on here, just reminds you of, if you don't tell these stories, we don't have the interest and the passion that we do. So hats off to you for doing it, and look forward to our next visit here very soon.
Well, thanks, Rob. Real quick, we're at cbssports.com. Real easy. Our big platform and big initiative is it's been around for a while. CBS Sports HQ, 24/7 streaming, free. It is live all the time, so you'll get the latest on Reggie Bush, the press conference today. I'll probably be on for that. We have the Cover 3 podcast, which is award winning. So on all platforms, but start at cbssports.com.
Well, it's what you said about Reggie Bush. You've actually talked to him. That is so refreshing, Bo. It's just someone that's actually, there's an urban myth and then there's the facts. Dennis, have a great week, and I'll get to you here shortly. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right. That's great stuff. Just Matt, we talked with him earlier about the Reggie Bush thing. He actually talked to Reggie, and what's going on with that. And I think we are SEC Sidelines, Sports Network, and SECU. But again, you can't just have it your way and to hell with everybody else. I love to see college football around the country. Gary Harris remembers 1971. Go back to the 70s. There's a Friday night game. Alabama starts out running the I or the veer in the pregame warm-ups at the Coliseum in Los Angeles, and then runs the wishbone. And Southern Cal's like, what in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? And they won the game. Alabama did 17-10. But, man, the more you look at what's going on in college football now, the more excited you get about, okay, I'm more fired up about how we're going to get through it, because, Gary, this is a game that coast to coast and everywhere in between has tremendous interest. And Dennis Dodd was just on with us. He said the TV numbers are actually the attendance figures at college football after 8 years of decline were actually up this past year. So, hey, I feel real good about it.
Well, I think that, I think there's still a lot of interest in the games. I don't want to be blinded to the fact that there's so much that's changed, that because the ratings are good on TV and people are going to the games means it's completely healthy. I do think that this, we got a wide receiver that was at USC, then UCLA. Now he's going back to USC. Of course, the SEC in football, you still can't transfer within the conference, like you can anywhere else. But there's a lot going on. And I want to say about the Reggie Bush thing. I never thought the Heisman should have been taken away from him in the first place, because what he did on the field, as a football player, was, you can't argue it. But I will say this: if we're going to be retroactive with all this now, we're seeing it in outside of sports too. We're seeing standards that we have today go back and they're applying them to something that happened in 1983 in the workplace or something like that. Well, if this is what we're going to do now, are we going to take these teams that were on probation and had to vacate and forfeit victories and games? Are we going to give them back to them because the rules are different now than they were in 1982 or 1992 or 1972? Are we going to make everything retroactive and apply the standards and the rules we have now? Because we've started this now with Reggie Bush. I'm sure there are a lot of schools that are going to say, listen, we had to vacate, 28 wins because we were cheating, but now that's totally legal. So we want those wins to be given back, which I've always thought vacating and forfeiting games is the stupidest thing anyway. The result on the field is what people remember. But to get back to what you're talking about, I'm not saying it's not a great game still, but I am concerned with where we're headed with the NIL. This is out of control. It was headed down this path from the minute it was made legal, but people were trying to say name, image, and likeness. This wasn't about a video game. This wasn't about a T-shirt or signing an autograph. This was about paying guys, period. This is straight pay for play, and I just don't know that it can sustain over the long haul. And you continue to hear, well, somebody's going to have to do something. Well, who's somebody and what are they going to do? Okay, we've been to Congress. Athletic directors can't get anything done. University presidents. So I've accepted that this is what it is. And yeah, everything looks great now, but I don't know if, you're paying guys $1 million a year now or more in some cases. What's it going to be 2 years from now, 3 years from now? High school guys want their piece of the pie. So I'm not arguing that the game looks healthy in terms of the TV ratings and people are going to the games. And yeah, when they run through that tunnel on Saturday or out onto that court on, Wednesday night, we're still caught up in it. But the difference is, in my opinion, for many, many years in the business that we're in, and certainly you coaches, you knew how the sausage was made. You could see the little man behind the curtain working the levers, but everybody else still thought it was a Wizard of Oz. Now everybody is seeing how the sausage is made, and long term, I'm not sure that that's healthy. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, great take. And Gary, I love your studio in there, man.
I usually have to sit across the hall in the alternate studio because Barry is in here, Barry Sanderson, but he's out this morning, so I'm able to get in my spot a little bit earlier.
Tide 100.9. Gary has a great show Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Right after we're on in just nonstop college sports, pro sports, and everything. And WVUA TV 23
and Rob,
in Tuscaloosa.
Your panel may disagree with what I just said. That was just
I'm gonna put it out for discussion.
I just threw that in there. I'm just saying where we're going with this. Again, I've said this. I cover University of Alabama. I see it. People say, well, they're always asking for money. Yeah, but if you're building an arena or it's finite. Eventually, you're going to build the thing, and the money you're going to quit asking for money. NIL is ongoing. Nate Oates wanted $3 million this year for NIL, but you know what? Next year, it's the same thing. That year's over with. I got to have more money. This never ends, and I just wonder how long donors and even people that are donating to these collectives that are common people are going to be willing to continue to financially keep these athletic departments going in terms of what they're having to pay the student athletes. Just my take.
It's a great take, and I'll throw it to Matt and Bo. It's like transactional business versus, fee-based or managed business coming in. That residual business. Every year you start at zero. It's like being in the commission business. Every month you start off at zero. I don't think it's sustainable. That's why when I say the free market will correct it, it's just going to be donor fatigue will win out. Matt?
I agree 100% with Gary. I also think it's out of the box. You're not putting it back in. Mm-hmm. And I think, let's be honest, I listened to a podcast yesterday. Unfortunately, guys, I'm an Iowa fan, and I was listening to Fran McCaffrey, and he made a good point. I mean, he was talking about salary cap. At some point, we got to be honest and treat this like professional situation, and it needs to be a salary cap. We need to be transparent. We need to have it out there. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon either, Gary. But
I don't either.
At some point, if you're ever going to truly contain this, It's almost got to be treated like a professional sport where you have to manage the budget and you know the cap. And you know, at some point, I can't take this next portal guy because I'm over budget, right? And we're going to have a luxury tax for some SEC football teams that are willing to pay. I mean, that's, equity is out the window, guys. That's all I'm saying. It's been so long.
Yeah, alternative minimum tax. I mean, there's no telling where we're going. Bo Carter, sitting there in the wise Mount Rushmore of journalism. Your thought?
Yeah, I was going to totally agree with Matt. They're going to have some sort of a salary cap. Gary probably agrees with this too. They just it's gotten totally out of control. And then the NCAA let the cat out of the bag by letting the states go ahead and pass the stuff, like you were saying. Missouri, Virginia, and Mississippi, as Dennis talked about, are going to give NIL money to high school players. I mean, allow high school players. So that opens another can of worms right there. And plus, you got the big old Internal Revenue Service looming out there saying they've sent out memos to everybody. Hey, where's this money? Are they paying any income tax on this or whatever? Who's getting? This is more than your grandmother giving you $8,000. Remember, what's the gift deal, Rob, for a house or whatever?
I think it's like 18,000.
18,000 now. So this is and I'll be honest with you, Texas Tech had one of the early solutions to it. Just give everybody on the team $25,000, and that way you don't have the lineman not blocking for the quarterback who's getting $1.5 million.
Well, yeah, and you got an exemption. Each person can leave $13.6 million. You have a unified tax credit. A couple can leave $27.2 million. If they have an estate of $50 million, everything above the $27.2, unless they do some good estate planning, is taxed at around 37 to 40% and goes up from there. Gary, we're going to switch gears. Talking college football, man. Alabama wrapped up spring practice. They had some guys leave, but they're also bringing some guys in. Let's talk about the receiver that came here from Washington. He was on Hey Coach, man. So he's integrating into the culture pretty fast. And where's he from originally?
Jeremy Bernard is a guy that was at Washington and was a good player. Don't get me wrong. It's not like he was a stiff. But he was behind Aduzne and those other guys that are up there that are so good that he wasn't, their main go-to guy. He was a good player. And here at Alabama, I think he's got a chance to take the next step to be a great player. He's originally from Las Vegas, Henderson, Nevada, Las Vegas area. Okay. Went to Liberty High School and then was recruited to Washington after he'd gone to Michigan State. So he's another one of these guys that this is his third school, but I think he is ready for a breakout year. He's 6'1", he's about 205 pounds, so he's physical. He can make the catches in traffic. Had a great 8A game, and he's another weapon, and he understands the offense. He played in this system, so he followed DeBoer and Nick Sherman and those guys here to Alabama, and I think he's going to have a really big year.
Yeah, and you think about it, Matt. He's been at 2 schools. This is his third school. But Dennis said the portal hadn't been as crazy up to this point as it has been. Are we starting to see a little bit of a settling in? Guys are realizing, well, maybe I should stick it out. What are your takeaways up to this point along what Gary said?
Well, I talked to my son last night, and honestly, it's just like an NFL GM situation. Oregon's looking for a defensive tackle right now. So if there's a defensive tackle on the market, you're going to go get that person. So it's almost like a position of need situation, like free agency or, situations where there's a trade without having a trade. So it may not be as active because I think people are kind of learning how to use it more. The unfortunate situation is, guys, we all know this. The stars find a home. There's so many kids that go in the portal and don't find a home and get misled and give up an opportunity they had instead of sticking with it and trying to get some reps on the field or whatever. And that's the situation that's kind of really unfortunate, all this that we don't talk about. I know we're always concerned about the money, but the good players find homes. It's the young men that come there. They may have been 4 or 5-star. They didn't realize there's 3 or 4 4 or 5-stars at their position group when they get to practice. And they're not willing, they get bad advice. They're not willing to stick it out and wait till the junior year to get on the field and then become possibly an all-conference player and make money. and they leave early, and then they get nothing, zero. It's happening everywhere, and that's what's really unfortunate.
Yeah. Gary, we talked about Dylan Gabriel leaving Oklahoma to go to Oregon, and I think he got a nice big deal. But are guys starting to say, well, my NFL feedback isn't all that good. I'm going to jump around as much as I can, extend my college career. Hell, Miami's got a guy that's going to be a 9th-year college football player this year. I mean, anything's possible, isn't it, Gary?
Yeah, you just play as long as you want to. I had a hung fingernail last year. I couldn't catch the ball. I want an extra year.
Yeah.
You seem to be able to get it ever since COVID. And yeah, for some of these guys, and I'm seeing it in basketball a lot too. Some of these guys' highest earning potential is going to be as a college athlete, as a student athlete. Make no mistake about it. Some of these guys aren't going to play in the NFL or the NBA. They're going to make more money in college as a student athlete, probably they're going to make in their lives. Even if they have to go into another business. I mean, you're not going to, let's say you make, $500,000 one year to play college football or basketball, and you don't make it, you're not really a great pro prospect, but you've got, value to your team and you get a, good NIL deal. Well, then you have to go into the private sector and get a job, and you're not going to probably start out at $500,000 a year. So you're right. I mean, for some of these guys and young ladies too, they're going to make more money in college than they're going to make it as professionals. I got a question for you, Rob, since you're a financial guy. You mentioned the tax situation, the structure, and we're talking about making them employees, and who knows, maybe at some point we'll even have to be unionized. I'm not even sure how these transactions work with some of these guys. I mean, is it going through the collective, or is it just some donor says, hey man, I want you to come play for us. Here's $500,000. How many of these guys and young ladies are getting NIL money do you think are actually paying taxes now that have an accountant and are keeping all this stuff straight? I'm not sure that all of them are.
Well, what I've heard is that from some people that run some collectives have told me they offer accountants, we have our CPA here, perhaps it's Howard Sprague from Mayberry, the county clerk. Howard Sprague is going to manage it. Okay, well, no, we'll take care of it. We got this. Right.
Yeah, because some of this money is not going through collectives. Let's be honest. It's still it's like it used to be, except you're not going to get in trouble for it. There are some of these guys that want a player at their school, and they just say, "Hey, coach, I'll handle this. You don't need to go through a collective. Hey, young man, how much is it going to take?" Well, Mike, it's going to take. Or the handler says it's going to take $750,000. I got you covered. So they're giving them the money. I doubt very seriously that's getting claimed on a tax form anywhere.
Yeah, and that's when we're going to have our first game where the starting quarterback is ineligible because there's a lien on that we're going. It's going to happen, and when that happens, that's when I think it's going to blow up.
Well, that's about the only thing that can make you ineligible these days, isn't it? I mean, you got guys hopping to 3 or 4 schools in a year, and I never hear any issues about, it's all online classes. I guess online classes have solved everything,
Well, we all remember the preeminent Rhodes Scholar, Dante Jones at Mississippi State. Took 36 hours during the summer. Now, was that in between Oxford and Cambridge? Oh, it was in Starkville. Yeah. But you're right. Nobody is ever, whatever happened to Prop 48? Bo, Matt,
anybody?
Gone. It's gone. And the weird thing about it too, Rob and Gary and Matt might agree. High school recruiting really is. Dennis was talking about a little bit today, like 5-star recruits, 4-star. Now you just go out and you need a defense. As Matt pointed out, you need defensive tackle, need a safety or whatever. You go call Colorado or call a kid at Colorado or what, and. The NCAA, I think, has dealt with some of the tampering cases, but I mean, it's the wild, wild west. It's just whatever you can get away with, and they're not. I guess the worst job in the world you can have right now is working for the NCAA enforcement or compliance division. It's just they're not giving any guidelines. It's pretty much open. And I do agree too. The salary cap is going to happen at some point. I mean, they're going to. I think the schools are going to demand it. One last point too. You got Vanderbilt, university-wide, trying to do a $3.5 billion building program, including Vanderbilt Stadium or First Bank Stadium. Yeah, and they don't know what to do. We got a big email yesterday from the AD. What do we do about NIL money? They're really lagging far behind the other SEC schools. Plus, $68,000 a year tuition. So, man, and tuition fees? So. man, they've got a really major problem over there. So
Yeah, well,
hopefully their multi-million-dollar alumni can come through somehow.
yeah, Matt, I was talking to Chris Lee, who's on our show a lot, Southeastern 14. He covers Vanderbilt closely. He said they've got about 35 big donors. That's who they go to, and that's pretty much who they pay attention to. Every school's got that cabal of donors. But, Matt, you know, as an AD and in your job at Rhodes as a coach, there's only so many times you can go to the well.
Well, and I think it's changing, because it used to be you went to the well with those people on capital projects, facility enhancements. So now you go to those folks and maybe you build up your NIL collective, whatever you want to call it. Well, how does that help with deferred maintenance, right? Now, I will tell you, when Dennis was talking earlier about the chunks of money that everybody's getting from the TV deals in the SEC and the Big Ten, you can obviously use some of that money on deferred maintenance and facility enhancements. But, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and there's only so much money. And do you want it to go towards future projects or current athletes? And then what really gets lost to this is the donor at a mid-major that coach identifies a star, develops the star. I give that kid a lot of money, and then he transfers to Alabama, and that just pisses people off, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just and I don't know, the one young man, was it North Dakota, Gary? Where did the 6'10" kid you guys got?
North Dakota State, Grant Nelson. Yeah, North Dakota State.
Great example. He was a fine fit for your basketball team, but he was developed in the great state of North Dakota.
Yeah, Gary, and I know you talk every day about Alabama and the SEC and college sports. Where I see going into this coming year, like there's a kid Auburn got the other day, Isaiah Rikes. He was at Texas A&M in December. In January, he went to Southern Cal, and he didn't like the way spring practice went, I guess. Now he's at Auburn. I mean, what's going to happen if his food's cold when it comes out on the plate?
Yeah, and he's academically eligible. He's at 3 schools in one semester, but through the beauty of online classes, I'm sure he was enrolled at one school while he was actually technically at another school. He was finishing up classes at that. That's what because I checked into that a little bit, because it's so concerning to me, because you have a guy that was at one school and then he leaves that school. He's not yet enrolled at the new school, but he's already in that town on campus. Well, how is he remaining, academically eligible? Well, he's still technically enrolled at his old school, and he's taking online classes. And so when he finishes up the semester there, he'll enroll at your school, and he's academically eligible. So,
amazing.
Well, what gets me, you remember Fast Times at Ridgemont High when
great movie.
Jefferson, the big football player,
he only came in for home games, right?
And that guy goes, "Hey, man, I didn't know he went to school here. I just thought he flew in for the game." So I got on Twitter, back then, and I put that video out there, and I said, "Hey, has anybody heard about this kid? He's 6'6", 320, and runs a 4.5." And I put the video out. There were actually people going, "Man, like, where's he rated? Where is he leaning?" I was like, that was Jefferson from Richmond. You got to be careful out there. But, guys, I mean, Matt, think about the academic party at Rhodes, what you got to go through. And, I really just wonder, the one thing we never hear about anymore are tutors and academic advisors.
Don't need them. Just online classes.
Just online classes.
Well, and COVID gave us an excuse to go that route, and we've continued that route.
Yeah.
And, as much as these students look at March Madness, when I play in a regional and win a game on Sunday, I get on an airplane to go to the next site. I'm out of class probably 5-6 days over a 2-week period.
Yeah.
So everything's probably online, like Gary says. And quite frankly, the value of learning has just diminished in our society as a whole. I don't want to get political here, but we're watching these Ivy League schools, and they go remote the last couple of days because people are protesting.
Yeah.
And I was like, how about a president stand up and said, you know what? If you don't go to class and you're going to be out there raising heck and you're not supporting our country, you're expelled. I mean, come on, get out of here.
80,000.
Send them back. I mean, I'm tired. I'm just tired, guys.
Hey, I gotta go, Rob. Thanks, man.
All right,
Appreciate
thank you
it.
so much,
man.
Gary.
All right.
Gary
See you
Harris,
guys.
Tide 100.9 WVUA and Channel 23 in Tuscaloosa. That's the thing. Bo and Matt, you got $80,000 a year tuition at Columbia University, and they're going to go online the rest of the year. You got to be kidding me, pal. You got to be kidding me, pal. Didn't mommy and daddy give you enough attention as a child? Good Lord. I mean, I would be so, I will say this. I don't think Auburn ever stopped in-person learning. They did not pull over to the side of the road and hide in the fetal position. They turned on their windshield wipers and they persevered. I remember a friend of mine, Dr. Gouge, was president. Then he became interim president after they got rid of Stephen Leith, who lasted 23 months. And he said, "You got your phone handy?" And my friend, we'll call him Clarence Beeks, he had the crop reports. He said, "Sure." He made a video. And he said, "This fall, all 523 clubs and organizations on the campus will be open. Our doors will be open, and we will be open." Matt's right. You got to have leadership.
Yes.
You cannot have the tax tail wag the dog. Don't be afraid to do things. If you got a concentrated position of something and you don't need it, don't let the tax tail wag the dog. And I'll tell you, Gary's right. Remember when Wimp Sanderson was asked after a game? Y'all might remember this. Coach, he said, "Yes. How many of your players have graduated?" And Winfred E. Wimp Sanderson replied, "As many as wanted to." That's what I love about coaches. We got grow a pair, get a backbone. SpinesRUs.com. You can make a fortune because we have emasculated our society so much that the presidents aren't going, "You don't show up for class, you fail. You fail."
It's simple.
And you know what, Matt's an awesome parent. Bo, all of us are. You got to hold people accountable. And I just thought about that kid. He just signed with Auburn. Good for him. But December he's at A&M. January he goes to Southern Cal. Now he's coming to Auburn. I hope he has a good summer semester because he may be at the University of Alaska. I don't know. How'd you like to be a coach with your roster going, "All right, coach, look, you raised your voice last night and we lost the offensive line. They couldn't take it anymore. they couldn't take it." I don't know what, but as crazy as it is, we're gonna figure it out. And Matt and Bo and everybody watching this show, we love it so much. Is college football too big to fail? Anyone?
I'll let Bo handle that first.
Thanks, man.
Oh, you're wise.
No.
You're a teacher.
No, that's
Professor.
right. You're journalism. No, Rob, I don't think, like you and Dennis pointed out, people sitting in the living rooms and schools afraid to expand their stadiums because, TV was going to saturate the game or whatever too. And one other deal too, you guys know this as well, Auburn, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Alabama, especially, when in the pre-NIL days, you could bring a recruit in and say, "Hey, we've got Dennis Homan working, making $500,000 a year in pharmaceuticals. We can help. We've got enough alumni. We have an alumni network where you can get a job. You'll have a job when you get out. You may be, start off at $30,000 a year, but you've got a really good chance to elevate, right? At 2 or 3 years out of college, and Vanderbilt choose that for years and years. We'll get you in the insurance business or get you in med school.
Law,
med, law, or insurance, which some of us didn't do.
Owen College of Business at Vanderbilt's pretty damn good too.
It is. I was going to say, and Matt's seen that at Rhodes. I'm sure you can use that.
God.
Hey, you've got a network in Memphis and outlying area from other alumni. Hey, we can't guarantee a job, but we can give you access to anything. So those, I guess those days are gone.
I don't think so. I think they're still there, but Matt.
Well, they're there, but it's different. So I'll give you an example. Bo, at Rhodes, we aspire to be like Vanderbilt. A lot of people do academically. But my son's a great example. He started his academic career at UT Knoxville, transferred to Rhodes, leaves Rhodes, goes to A&M, Oregon, whatever. But one of the things, that helped him was just the education at Rhodes. Nothing fazed him coming out of Rhodes. Nothing. Same thing as a Vanderbilt person. Whatever track they take, they put in the time. It's no different than an athlete in minor league baseball that gets X amount of bats. They're going to be ready for the pros if they're good enough, right? And Rob, you asked a question earlier about sustainability, I think, in football. Football's not going in. College football, from an entertainment value, is going nowhere, man, but up. I mean, we buy in, we drink the Kool-Aid. I mean, we talk. It's April, and we're talking about it right now, Rob. It's almost like back in the day when I thought the NBA was, NFL is the one that's got it figured out. As soon as the Super Bowl's over, what are we talking about? We're talking about free agency. Then we're going to talk about the draft. Then we're going to talk about, after the draft, OTAs. Then we're going to talk about preseason camp. I mean, they got us hooked, line and sinker. They do. Yeah. And college football is right there with us. We've talked about the amazement of the Pac-12 and the dissolvement, and them some schools going to the Big Ten. Well, it's just part of a phase, I think, that's coming with top 50 or 60 football league. I think, unfortunately, Gary's talking about online learning. Well, listen, if you're going to get in this supermodel, you're paying athletes and you have a salary cap potentially, it's no longer learning. It's pro. No,
it is. And
that's what it is.
Yeah, it is. And I was thinking about what I meant about the networking was for the regular students. You go to Vanderbilt, you graduate
for
from
us.
school,
yes, it always will.
And Rhodes College, good gosh, think about University of Florida, like 500,000 living alumni. But the one knock that I hear from Florida people is they are going so heavily toward out of state, they're screwing the third and fourth generation legacies in state. You better not forget, dance with the one who brung you. Okay.
Yeah.
People of Florida built the University of Florida. University of Alabama is now less than 40% in state. And this greed, okay, about getting all that out of state tuition, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. By the way, as an aside, the average pig, has about 22 pounds of pork bellies, which is used, Mr. Valentine, in trading places for a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich. You guys a couple of bookies, ain't you? Yes, see, I told you, Winthorpe. Told you there, Mortimer. He's learning quickly. But that's where we're going. The academic part of it, when I know my friend Yan Cowart and Philip Cowart. Yan's the last guy to graduate with a degree in architecture and start for 4 years on the offensive line in football at Auburn. Yan Cowart. He is our architect that we bring on the show. I'm trying to get my dad to come on, but Grandbob likes to watch. He don't want to talk. But Yan is our consultant for the arms race for facilities. And by the way, Matt and Bo, we got a couple of minutes left. I'll say this. Just when all these schools have built these $100 million football-only facilities, which, have everything. They're like Sandals and Club Med. Now the conversation before the recruit leaves with his entourage, it's about how much you're going to give me. It's probably not about how nice the weight room is and that strength coach out there, who looks like a Russian prison guard. He's like, arr, 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 the traditional shaved head and a beard, Dr. Zhivago. That's where we are. You've got these facilities, and then it's about NIL. I'm going to tell you right now. We're all in business. There's only so many times you can go back to the same people for money, because you know what they're going to say. Look, go make your own. And this has got this NIL craziness we have right now. I promise you, it has a shelf life. Because it's going to be, we're not winning and we're paying all this money. But guys, there's a way you could say, I'll do it when I feel like it. Well, you gotta do it to feel like it. That's what really happens. But it's just, I think this is a very good discussion. But we don't ever stop talking about college football. It is like this giant shadow over us, So look, we've got to cut it a little bit short today. And let's see. Bottom line, Dennis Dodd made some great points. Matt, you did. Gary did. Bo, you all have. It's going to be so much fun as we go further. We're less than 3 months from media days. And I guarantee you we've got somebody watching this show right now that can tell us exactly how many days, how many hours, how many minutes, and how many seconds there are until the start of college football season. And whether you're out in Seattle or Des Moines, Iowa, Gainesville, Florida, Clemson, South Carolina, Columbia, Missouri, Memphis, it doesn't matter. Everybody gets fired up about their school. That's what we better be careful of. Don't make it to where people don't. What's the greatest thing you can give your fan base? Hope.
Yeah.
You better be able to do that. That's the thing. All right, Matt, how can people follow you, keep up with you? You put out a lot of cerebral stuff on Twix.
I think it's called X now, Rob, but
Twix. It's Twix.
But I do like Twix candy
Twix.
bars, everyone. At Dino Hoops 44. You can follow the Rhodes Links at www.rhodeslinks.com. And I also want to say happy draft day to everybody.
Yes.
Tonight, 5 hours of just pure enjoyment for me as a football junkie.
Yep.
I'm a big Chicago Bears fan, guys. So tonight,
Bears.
he changed the franchise forever. Caleb Williams to Chicago. Let's go.
Man, I'll tell you what, it is going to be fun tonight in Detroit.
Yes.
Man, that is going to be a raucous crowd tonight. There's nothing like the warm reception those Jets fans used to give when they did it up in New York. They'd boo Mother Teresa. She's not tall enough. Bo Carter, how can they follow your great work?
Yep, I hope nobody gets mugged outside the draft. I keep a police presence. At B Carter 52 on X, and also sports page DFW.com and the Texas Sports Daily. Glad to Rob. Always a pleasure to be on with you, especially Coach Dean.
Absolutely love it having all of y'all on here, Gary and Dennis Dodd. That was a lot of fun. Brendan Martin, our executive producer, the best on the planet down in Ocala, Florida. Hey, watch the Buddy Martin Show tonight. It's Monday through Thursday, sometimes Fridays. It's on our SEC Sideline Sports Network channel and SECU. Check out that podcast we did with Ken Capps, Buddy Martin, and me about Texas. We got one coming up soon about Boomer Sooner. So we'll be doing it, but most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Don't ever miss an opportunity to go out and help people. All that stuff you got in your bank and everything like that, you can't take it with you. Make great things happen. We'll see you tomorrow. We're out of here. Thank y'all.
Thank you, guys.
You bet.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.